Let's send a message to our friends running the Congress these days. Stop running around for Trump and start running the country. The people are watching. They want us to start working together. So our message is very clear. Either get on board or get out of the way.
That is once and now future Representative Tom Suozzi's victory speech, because he did win the special election for the New York 3rd District, formerly George Santos's district. He won. Great news for the Democrats. They've been doing very well the last few years in special elections, particularly in New York, but this one was very much in question for a couple of reasons that are fascinating that we're gonna jump into. But first, the results. It ended up being kind of close, not super close necessarily. That's about finalized results. There's still 7% of the vote or whatever to be counted, but he beat Mazi Pilip, the former Democrat, now kind of Republican, I guess, who was running against him. And we'll get into some of the issue specific stuff that made this race so fascinating. But I want to pause for just a second because I want you to look at those results again. So, and I want you to remember when you look at those that George Santos won that same seat by about 8 points less than a year and a half ago. And now the Democrat is set to win it by like 7 points. That is a 15-point swing in a year and a half with Biden in charge, by the way, and with economic and border chaos going and all those things that are a real concern for a lot of races. But here, it didn't really seem to be enough to get the Republican across the line. And look, there's a lot of interesting wrinkles to this race. The fact that it had been George Santos is certainly a thing, but the Republicans felt like they could win this. They felt like they got rid of Santos and now they could center the race around what they wanted to be focused on, these core issues, with this being kind of a test case for what they're gonna do with the general election of Trump versus Joe Biden. So they focused on immigration, and also the issue with the invasion of Gaza by Israel. That became a big topic in this particular district. It's one of the most Jewish districts in America, so you can understand why that would be front of mind. Tom Suozzi talked about those things. He talked about crime and immigration and all that, but he also brought up abortion, so bear that in mind. Because these races, they might seem minor. You might think, well, what do I care what happens in the 3rd District of New York? But control of Congress is a very narrowly held thing at this point, and the Democratic efforts to retake it in November could end up hinging on a single race. So any race, including this, could be very significant. We have more on this, but Sharon, what do you think so far?
I think it's a good showing. I love to be cynical. I love to be a Debbie Downer, but I think this is a good showing, particularly when you talk about the makeup of that district and the 8-point win and all of that. And it could be a litmus test for more to come in other races. It's just so weird that we won't have George Santos anymore. Now he's really gone. Like, this for me really put a punctuation mark at the end of it. But I think this shows some momentum for Democrats because, this president's not so popular when it comes to, with certain segment of the population, when it comes to his stance on Gaza and everything going on there. So that we'll have to watch for that, because as you mentioned, the makeup of this district is what it is. But I think there's some positive signs here if you don't want Donald Trump and other of his minions to make it across the finish line.
Yeah, I think Democrats are going to be analyzing this and seeing what lessons they could learn. I worry a little bit about some of those potential lessons and how they might be applied around the country, because Suozzi's not like a progressive or anything. Let's be very clear about that. And he felt like he needed to take this really hard line, like matching Pilip on issues like crime and migration and support for Israel and all that. They weren't identical on those topics, but that's the ground that the battle was fought on, and not really representing like the two poles of American politics on those topics. So we'll see if that is a lesson that is disseminated to Democrats running in other races. Maybe it'll be useful in some. We'll see, but it's definitely a race that Republicans were hoping that they could win. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.